potentially getting free wins versus the aggro decks. Quest Shaman can arguably do the same. So I think this ban for Leta was probably a tough decision, or at least that's what I would feel like if I was in his shoes right now.
I think if you look at it 4 decks versus 4 decks, it might be a tough decision. I think what Leta has to do here is understand how the ban phase works and realize he's losing his rogue. And when he loses his rogue, I think the Fell Demon Hunter is pretty much just a free win at that point, right?
Because he'll have the aggro decks, right?
He'll have aggro, token Druid, and it's token Druid with no Soul of the Forest. So good luck sticking a board, right? Like even your Anaconda board against Fell Demon Hunter, if they have Moarg, Arcanist, Fell Screen Blast, Immolation Aura, which is a 4-card combo that they will hoard for quite some time, even that one-off win condition can get blown away. So I think it's a smart ban in the end for Leta, but we have talked about the preamble for far too long. We are into game 1 already. Both players are ripping through their early turns at a rapid pace. Leta hits the Wild Growth into Overgrowth, which is the dream curve for him. He'll be looking to start generating some board presence as quickly as possible, because that's the key in this matchup, Raven. You need to get on board before the Handlock, because otherwise, if big old giants start coming down, you have no game in Druid against that kind of stuff.
This is about as good as it's going to get, like you said, though, because it's not only the ramp, it's also the Fungal Fortunes as well is going to keep those resources high. The Neophyte coming down now from Blyze is going to slow down Leta's turn. He's going to get on board with that Goldshine Null as well. And with double Soul Rend, sorry, I just forgot the name of the card that I've played a million times. With double Soul Rend in his hand, that at least affords Blyze some level of safety as long as he has threats to follow up with, right?
That's right. Cute turn here for Leta. The Cult Neophyte not having too big an impact. It certainly had an impact on his turn, because otherwise you'd probably just be seeing Malagos come down this turn, even with like Bloom, Mally, and then Coin to discard and not burn a card at the end of it, get a huge threat in play. But still being able to work in the Lunar Eclipse, take care of the major threat on board, and rip that Fungal Fortunes. But now, with Bloom Solar Cenarion available on the next turn, he might just be the first player to get significant threats in play, as I was talking about.
Yeah, there's a giant as well for Blyze, and Blyze crossing his fingers already, hopes for nothing too crazy going down right now. And he has also just been blasting through his own deck as well. He got the backfire off, already down to 14 cards, 13 on the draw. Some of these, 10 cards or less are going to be active very quickly already, and it's Leta's job now, as you mentioned, to put those big threats down and make Blyze not have the freedom to just keep drawing cards, right?
Yeah, it still has second Luna that he can throw out as well if he really wants to try and dominate the board this turn. But I think he will be just planning out how his curve works with the Malagos as well. The Solar Cenarion is obviously a huge play, but if it's a play that has to carry you for 2 turns from this point, you might feel a little bit sketchy about that. But I think evaluating the hand overall, there's just nothing else really available that's powerful enough. And yep, it's just going to have to be the play.
Good order as well with the old Lunar Eclipse. I've messed that up once or twice in my past.
Alright. Manageable.
Yeah, pretty underwhelming, I think, from Leta's side, the 2 minions he got. Especially because he didn't have any spells to follow up with the 4/9, right? So
Is just kind of a raised edge short of a good time here, so I think he is just going to go with the Soul Rend instead. Respect that, and drops the Cult Neophyte as well. But yeah, if he had access to raised edge there was some really wacky plays with, say, like deliberately taking 1 damage from a Shadow Blast by trading the Tour Guide in first, then raised edge to get Tour Guides back, tap for 0 mana, blah, 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 clear the board, and all of that stuff would be discounting your Giant as well, meaning the Giant would be able to come down. But without Raised Dead, I think Blyze just had to take a more pedestrian turn, just using the Soul Rend. But this does mean now that the 1-mana 6/6 is online next turn, just off the draw, even without a tap on the following turn as he draws to 10 cards.
Yeah, and these Neophytes, they've not locked Leta out of big turns, consistent, like game-winning turns, but they're doing enough, right? Like they're just that little bit frustrating here for Leta, and buying Blyze kind of just enough time to not fall behind on board. They've been pretty clutch right now, and like you said, with that draw on 10, Blyze is going to be able to really pop off next turn.
Yeah, I tested this exact matchup with Gia a little bit last night, and her use of Cult Neophytes from the Handlock side was always her biggest question. Every time she played a Neophyte, we'd get to the end of the game, and she'd go, did that Neophyte do anything against you? Like, she was really, she really wanted to know what it interrupted, and like in a couple of positions it was like, yeah, maybe, like, it sort of made my turn worse, but as you can see, I can still do stuff. And I think that's generally the story when it comes to this matchup. Unless you're playing it, like, exactly on curve to shut down, like, an Overgrowth or something in the early game. They're just annoyances. They don't really lock out entire turns, but as you said, they just do it.
Really good draw, though. And Netheron picked up from xBlyzes. Easy one drop. You can still clean this up, push 3 to face, and drop down a Scavenger? Like he's favoring just the Flesh Giant trade, okay.
Positioning very clutch here for xBlyzes, yeah. Flame Tongue Totem Conga line with the Wind Fury here. If the 3-1 lives, he can get 6 damage out of that, blast it out of the way with a Drain Soul or a Shadow Bolt, and then get the Wind Fury on the following minion as well. So that would be, what, 38 damage in total? That looks like a good number to be pushing opponent's 37 health.
Leta's going to need to pick up something here to deal with this Neophyte. There's Bloom and something. Oh, he went for Guess the Weight. Okay. Let's get to kill it anyway with the hero power.
Yep.
Although, interestingly enough, what is the quest at here for xBlyzes? Because I think something that people forget about a lot is the 3 extra damage from proccing quest on certain lethal turns. I've seen loads of people miss it because they forget that they can like proc the quest and push an additional 3. And there you go. For example, that's going to be game number 1.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, Leta able to play around the Wind Fury lethal on board at the very least. By hero powering down the 3-1, which of course was essential. It's why you saw hero power coin Malagos as the play in the first place, as well as that just being more efficient to draw maximum cards with the Mali. But in the end, the extra damage from the hero power was just enough for xBlyzes, and it was a very aggressive opening. And I think, honestly, that's the kind of story of that matchup. If you draw the ramp Celestial half of your deck, you're going to be in trouble. You really, like in my experience against Gia, it was discovering extra token minions from nature studies, like landscaping, and just throwing those out early. And then just like jamming Glowflies and just hoping the Soul Rend wasn't in the top 10 cards. That tended to be the way that you got there, because Celestial Alignment, that plan is just so bad against Handlock because you give them 0 mana Flesh Giants. Obviously, they get discounted by 1, and then the discount gets applied to the cost 0. You get 0 mana Nulls for the same reason. You get 1 mana 6/6s, even if there aren't 10 cards left in your deck with the Baron Scavengers. Like, the turn you align, they're going to play 20 power on board. So it's not really a plan that you can rely on. Makes it a pretty rough matchup overall. And again, I want to go back to the point I had at the start. Submitting that list with 2 alignments in it does confuse me this week with the lack of D6 Warlock coming out on the other side. Like, I'm not sure what 2 copies of Celestial Alignment in that deck really aims at now in the metagame. There's a matchup here and there for sure, but I'm not really sure if that Druid overall is the bring for me this week to Grandmasters.
Well, we're going to see if it can do something versus this Rogue deck, massively growing in popularity over the past, week would you say is a fair rough time period with this Garrote version of the Rogue and this specific build as well. There's a couple of players bringing a different card here and there, but this is the version at least I've been playing, which was xBlyzes and a couple of other players as well, and it feels pretty good. There's a couple of options where like some players bring 2 Brain Freeze, no Penflinger, some players bring 2 Penflingers, no Wand Makers, and so on, and it all varies up, but really the game plan itself is the same, which is something we had a good show of in the Asia Pacific broadcast this morning. Of a few times I think on stream there was there's some big Garrote turns and some big question mark turns as well, I think.
Yes, indeed. Very difficult deck to navigate. Again, we tested a good amount of this deck going up against Control Warrior and a couple of other matchups while we were testing decks yesterday. And it certainly is a deck that you can feel your improvement with as you put more and more games in. You start to recognize the pitfalls, and particularly with some of these lists that are coming out that have slimmed down on some of the minion package, like lists that don't play One Thieves, for example, and play Penflingers instead. Right. We were running into an issue where there just isn't enough minions to be able to give spell damage to on the turn where you're trying to kill your opponent, because you just don't have One Thieves anymore. So literally the only minion that can receive multiple spell damage buffs is your Octobot, which really limits your sequencing for your late game turns. We were even digging into weird win conditions about 10 mana plus 4 spell damage.
We were deep in the tank yesterday, weren't we?
Shadow stepping them back to their hand. That was a Lorinda idea originally. Honestly, one of the best ideas he's ever had. It was genius. We should have done it, but no one believed. I was trying to fight his corner. It was just the play.
Yeah, we were like pioneers yesterday, just working out very weird ways and discovering new ways to even play the deck. And only a couple of them worked, I'm going to be honest. But let's dive straight in. Leta going to be on the Druid once again, of course. And xBlyzes kicking off with the Rogue. And for me, Sottle, this is one of the... I felt, at least when I started playing the deck, the hardest parts of, yes, there's the combo turns and doing all that crazy stuff, but for me, the mulligan feels particularly difficult. And you do not agree.
I'm not entirely sure I agree with that. I think it's a very simple mulligan overall.
I think you have to agree, because that's what I experienced. It's not a lie.
I see, okay. but I'm not questioning your experience, Raven.
I guess my point is, I was mulliganing for, Octobot and field contact, the good cards in the deck, the game-winning cards. And then I struggled with the early turns if I was getting, for example, aggroed down, and suddenly I've got to try and use these combo cards to fight back on board, and they're not the best at doing that. So I was going to lead it into it is one of the reasons why I like the Kazaka's Keep, because it gives you options for almost anything you need at any given point throughout the game.
Well, now we do have some talking points, because I think, first off, even against aggro, field contact Octobot are still the cards, because you want Octobot early still to get that huge tempo from discounting your hand. And really, the only way you're going to win board against a Shadow Priest or a Face Hunter, right, is to have a big pop-off field contact turn where you draw through your deck, get Prize Plunderers and Shadow Steps and so on, and take care of their board, right? So I still think that's the mulligan. However, this is now the moment for xBlyzes, because this will be a very... he's thinking about it, because we are getting into a very interesting place where, when I said I don't think there's many matchups where Celestial Alignment in this Druid makes sense, I was kind of hoping we'd lead into this one, because certainly I can see this being the one. And if Leta comes into this tournament with a read on everyone bringing Garrote Rogue, which has turned out to be a good read, suddenly the Celestial Alignment does start to make a bit of sense, right? Because it really does limit what's available for your opponent to do on any given combo turn. And I think that Celestial Alignment dynamic is exactly what xBlyzes is thinking about with this pick right now, and just how greedy he wants to end up being with his Golem. In the end, he just goes for the straightforward vanilla game plan of saying, okay, 1 mana Golem.
What you're saying is he should have picked 10.
It was an option. I think all 3 of them were legitimate options that I would listen to.
Leta's going to get Glowfly down and be as aggressive as possible. Now it's all going to be about the response from xBlyzes, and to the absolute shock of nobody, he's already kicking off the turn with the field contact, the trade with the Octobot, reducing the hand down, and off he goes.
That is always a welcome sight on one of these field contact turns. Ooh, 2 of them might be a little bit too fruity though.
I do love turns like this, because although I'm sure somewhere, somehow, somebody could generate the perfect way to play the turn in every single outcome, for me, I would have been like, I would have Shadow Stepped the Octobot and a way to ping it again, go, and just done very, very silly things.
I love this play. Having seen that this is the +1/+1 Golem from xBlyzes, I absolutely adore this. I didn't see what the secondary option was after the poison, but he is just making the enormous board state here, which I think is a very, very smart idea indeed. Of course, he can still get hit by Arbor Up, by Solar Arbor Up on the other side, but I think he understands the real problem to his game plan, which is just getting Celestial alignmented on curve right now, right? Because even with the Neophyte coming down, the Nature Studies discount is still applying to the alignment, making it cost 7. So if he did not make an aggressive board here, and Leta could just press alignment and say go, he might have been in trouble. Having drawn the second Octobot now, though, he now has ways to play around that even, though, because Octobot, of course, discounting all those 1-mana cards to 0 is a very exciting prospect. But I really like this line from xBlyzes. Good understanding of just how to play your deck in abnormal fashions in a difficult matchup to create interesting win conditions, right? You love to see it.
Yeah, it's ticking all the boxes as well. Field Contact ended the turn with Divine Shield on. Some of his minions are really big. He ended the turn with the poison down, and already there's the concede. It's just already too much, right? He couldn't clear enough of the board, and like I said, it's just down to the fact that everything that turned from xBlyzes, I said, I'm sure someone can work out the perfect turn. I think xBlyzes was probably pretty close. He started that turn instantly, very rapid decision making on the card draws, and that's it, right? He just made a board so awkward that he was going to be ahead for the rest of the game. He almost just played the Token Druid mirror, right? He got to Arbor Up first, and it was more of a problem for Leta to answer it.
He's just Cypher in the Matrix, just sitting there. He doesn't see the numbers anymore. He just sees Golem, step, Golem, lethal. That's how he sees the game. And you can go back to that moment where he was picking his Golem, right? And I think that entire thought process had gone through his head at that moment. It's rare that you see xBlyzes stop and think for a decision for that long on one individual decision, right? And I think that's why the rest of the turn was played so effortlessly, is that he had that mapped out. And he was considering 5-mana Golem, 10-mana Golem, big chunky threats, if Case Celestial comes down, but then having reasoned it out, he said, no, I can just take a 1-mana Golem and just race Celestial here, right? And just put myself in a position where I can dominate and just be way too aggressive, and that's absolutely the position he put himself into. Again, I'll say it again, that's what separates a great player from a good player, is that understanding of how to pilot decks in ways that they're not designed to be piloted. Every other win with Garrote Rogue we've seen, going all the way back to Masters Tour and before, it's been the combo kill predominantly, right? Or it's been a win against anti-aggro where they've just survived. That was just buff board, because he understood that's what Druid was weak to, and he understood that Druid was strong against what he generally wants to try to do with the deck, which is combo them out of the game. So fantastic game, even though it was very short. A real highlight, I think, overall of the week, even though it may be a little bit too early to call it now in match 1 of day 1 of the week, but that could be one of the best games you've seen.
And I will say, that statement is even more complex, piloting a deck the way it's not supposed to be, and doing it well, I think, is the key, because I pilot decks the way they're not supposed to be all the time, and it definitely does not work out as well for me when I try to do it. So yeah, xBlyzes performing very, very well. He just has this Quest Shaman left, and again, just the sheer overall sort of all-rounder power of Quest Shaman, he's got to be feeling extremely comfortable with the rest of this lineup. Leta has Shadow Priest, Hunter, and this Druid left. I'd be feeling pretty happy if I was xBlyzes right now.
I would too, and doesn't he look it? Just looks delighted with how this series is going. Yeah, I think Shaman's in a really good spot now. Much to my chagrin, because I'm not a huge fan of the play pattern of this deck. It's kind of the most control priesty deck that exists in the meta right now, right?
Yep.
Where it just opens a bunch of random boxes, has infinite value, yada, yada, yada. But I think D6 Warlock was one of the decks really keeping this in check, and D6 Warlock is gone, basically, at this point, unless we see some miraculous recovery for it somewhere down the line. And that gives the opportunity for this to really come out and play. There is still Handlock keeping it in check, but even Handlock got their Giants maybe 1 turn slower if you're being kind about it, right? And that's potentially 1 turn that the Shaman can use to get Brukan down on board, start doing their own Brukan things with Charge Skull. Entirely accidental, but we ran with it. And
Stumbled, I think is more correct.
Yeah. I think that matchup's got a little bit closer overall as well, even though I would still call it Handlock favoured. So I would certainly keep an eye on Quest Shaman for the coming weeks of Grandmasters, because I think it's in a fantastic spot in the metagame right now.
Already though, Leta does have the kind of good set of cards, right, in the early game. He has the fungal, he has the overgrowth there, so he can start ramping and kind of doing his own version of a more clean overload style, where you just always have more mana when you do it with Druid. But it is terrifying, because even a good-looking board here on Leta's side, Shaman has the ability to deal with it, whether it's devolving missiles, whether it's the like tons of AoE that it can dig through, but also even cards like Revolve, right, can completely mess with Leta's board if he makes it that wide.
I love the way you say revolve. Revolve.
And
like something has volved and then it's volved again. That's the way you say it.
And it's true. Wait till we get to Fell Demon Hunter. We'll be great.
Oh, I'd forgotten about that. Oh, Raven, your pronunciations of words are the gifts that never stop giving.
Yeah, imagine people complain about such things.
It's ridiculous.
Just entertainment at this point. Full of Fortune's going to come down from Leta. He does have that Moon Touched Amulet as well, so that's going to be pretty decent, at least just getting rid of one of these minions. Although, do you think there's more value to try and kill off the Note Taker, weirdly enough?
It's certainly terrifying. I think the one big win that you have right now as Leta is that xBlyzes is very low on value, so suddenly if there's an investment opportunity or a guidance in hand, that's a very scary card to leave up, right? So yeah, I do very much respect this choice, even though he's going to be resigned to taking a beating. I think if he could see the exact hand from xBlyzes, he would have just killed the 6/4.
Right.
He doesn't want to be facing down 2 6/4s anymore this turn, but against an unknown hand, that's a very scary situation to leave yourself in.
Could go for Glowfly into Arbor Up this turn, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like it might be the kind of turn that Leta needs. You can just say, okay, xBlyzes has no cards, more or less.
Mm-hmm.
These two minions do not trade very well into a Glowfly Arbor Up board. He can take 12 this turn and still be more than okay, so I think he just goes for it. He has enough mana to.
I think what's interesting is if you hold on to it, so Arbor Up doesn't really change the one breakpoint you're scared of, right, which is Perpetual Flame. As you see xBlyzes now crossing his fingers. No, that's an overdraft.
Trade into it, it'll be fine.
So by doing it this way, you're going to get the same number of minions killed, right? Like, players will always respect your Glowfly board, and if they don't, fantastic, because now by not arboring on the previous turn, he now has Solar Arbor on this turn for the counter lethal.
Sure.
I think this is a pretty smart way of going about it, because I don't think there's I don't think there's too many breakpoints that you are particularly worried about the difference between 2 and 3 against Shaman. And there you see, big payout, enormous damage. Leta does get a win on the board with Celestial Druid. This series is going by in a heartbeat, but it is now 2 games to 1 to xBlyzes with just that Quest Shaman that you just saw left to win with.
Yeah, and I think you can see that although Leta took the win, right, he set up very well as you broke down for us, but you could see xBlyzes kind of just like, okay, yeah, next game, because that shows how comfortable he is in this series as a whole. No one wants to lose games of Hearthstone, of course, but when you play, when you're a tournament player, you see the bigger picture, right? You can win 3-2 and you can win 3-0. A win is a win, and I think that's where you just see xBlyzes at the end just kind of like, yeah, okay, no problem, concede next game, because he's that comfortable with having this Quest Shaman left over.
I think from this position, if he trades 2 minions, there's then, 5 minions attacking for 6, so 1 has to clear the taunt, 4 go face, but at that point, Leta can, Solar Arbor just wins, right? Regardless of whether it's lethal or not in that position, it's going to win the game, right? Because crucially, it then also makes 4 health minions, so even a Perpetual Flame top deck is really not going to do a whole world of difference at that point. So I like the decision just to go face and say, they don't have it, it's fine, I'm just going to push the damage, try and back this up with the Silvermoon Portal and Fireheart in hand to get lethal, but that was probably the last remaining truly bad matchup that xBlyzes had in this series, because now he gets to play some anti-aggro with Quest Shaman, which is a thing that Quest Shaman absolutely loves to do.
And he's been going up against this Hunter first from Leta. And I do feel Hunter's in a weird spot right now in terms of just its power overall. It's definitely not a super weak deck, but I think it preys more on opponents not having great draws than it does on its own power, if that makes sense. I feel like it's more of a punish your opponent for having a more broad deck or not a consistent draw than anything else, because what Hunter actually does is not that powerful compared to a lot of other things in the game right now. But it's one of those things where if you want an aggro lineup, there aren't 4 decks that make that, right? They're arguably not even like 2 if you don't count Hunter. So I do understand the bring, and it does have the ability to just sneak under there, especially if Blyze just doesn't get hold of a Perpetual Flame, which he didn't last game, so it can happen.
And that's been the role of Hunter since the beginning of Hearthstone, really, right? It's just kind of this stop sign in the meta that shows you when you're getting too greedy, right? It punishes bad decks, it does it very well. There's a reason why every new expansion, you'll always run into a person or two who's just trying to gain some quick ranks by playing Face Hunter on day one. And, you know, more power to them. You know, I guess for some people, it's just they don't have access to the new cards, so they're just jamming some Face Hunter, trying to pick up some gold or whatever else. But there's a reason why it does work against bad decks, because the simple game plan of play minions go face, if you haven't built your deck to account for that, you're going to be in trouble. But Quest Shaman is a deck that has lots of tools to be able to account for that situation. As you see already, board kind of won on turn 2 at this point.
As Hunter in that situation, you'll take anything that's a 3-3 or less, but a 3-4, there's just nothing good, especially going into turn 3, right? Blyze having access to the coin as an answer, Felmore being as slow as it is in the game. Even if Felmore goes face or trades, it doesn't matter. Leta's probably expecting to fall behind very quickly, and he needs to make a decision right here, right now, how he wants to continue this game. On one hand, he could aim shot face and just say, let's go. On the other hand, he does have the Wrangler, so he will be able to pull a Rhino and then try and fight for some level of board at that point. And that might be the card that's pushed him over the edge here. I'm just saying, I'm not going to go hyper aggro. I'm just going to build up the board and keep playing the board focus game, at least for now. That's the unlock, right?
With the Zapper as well, coming down. Oh, we didn't even...
It's before, yeah.
Yeah.
The storm is in me.
Just playing for tempo, just winning board. 2 minions in play now that can challenge the Felmore. It's actually, when you look at it from a normal Hearthstone standard, 2 very good value trades for the Felmore, right? But that's generally not what you're interested in when you're playing Face Hunter. You want that thing to go downtown basically every single time.
It's kind of awkward, right? Because the minion... I think, if anything, Leta might have preferred it kill the Zapper, because now if he plays Wrangler and there is a Flame, it's just dead. Again, I don't really see the other way, right? If he Piercing Shot passes, then he's gonna definitely fall behind on board. Now he gets to double Torrent here.
I mean, he gets to duplicate the Torrent.
Yeah, not this turn, sorry, but yeah.
And obviously Torrent's self-fueling here as well, discounting itself for the next turn by being the spell that's cast on the previous turn, and he knows there's a Rhino in hand that's going to be the answer as well.
It's so heartbreaking on the Hunter side here for Leta, because Rhino's a great turn right now. This is why you pick Rhino, to follow it up straight away on turn 5. But you know, for 1 mana, Blyze will just destroy your Rhino and play something else, and then what's his answer then? Just Piercing Shot, hero power, aim shot, hero power. Blyze is on 29 and it's turn 5. He'll be on a bit less with the Rhino trade, of course, but I don't think the raw damage plan is even a good plan right now.
Oh, what do you even do?
I think you just play the Rhino and hope to draw something better next turn, let it die.
I have no time for games.
I mean, the hand just says damage, right? I just don't really see any other way of
That's what I mean.
Yeah.
Maybe there's, Barrack drawn soon, then you can go Rinlin's Rifle and try and set up, a bit more of a board-focused game plan a tiny bit later with some secrets, but he's going to hold the Rhino back. He's going to deny He's going to deny Blyze a good play here with the Torrent by not playing anything, though, right? Which is the scary thing. Blyze retains the minion, pushes a little bit of extra damage. And he still has the torrent active for next turn as well.
Yeah, I do like this. I like the decision at the end there as well to waste 1 mana, essentially. Normally the cardinal sin, again, if you are a Pheno gamer like xBlyzes, but in that situation, obviously, summoning a totem is worse against Rhino. Playing the Wand Maker is worse against Rhino because it puts a lower health target on the board than any of the ones that you have available. And also the investment opportunity can draw Canal Slogger, which is a very, very big deal, right? And I think that's actually a big part of the reason why this Rhino isn't hitting the board, is that he does not want it to get counter-swung by the Canal Slogger on the other side. I don't think he's that as scared of the torrent as he is from healing coming back the other way. I think the healing might end up being the big deal here because, again, his hand is just damaged. He cannot afford to get hit by lifesteal here. What is that Bloodweaver roll, though? That is disgusting.
But the problem is, like, one, these minions are just too big to even get that much value from Adorable. Does he ever, like, buff his opponent's minion to then piercing shot the Adorable? And then a hero power, and then next turn he has quick shot hero power X? I don't know. I think he has to. I don't think he can play this Rhino.
Doesn't fit the Rhino in. No, again, I think the Rhino has to be the killing blow, right? The way it has this laid out because of that lifesteal interaction I was talking about. So if he piercing shot hero powers this turn, which he can do, right? Fits in with Adorable. Then he's dealing 7. 2 more, so his opponent's at 9. The Rhino quick shot then deals, what, 8 if it hits a 2 health minion, which there's not going to be until... Yeah, he's just going to be 1 turn short, it looks like. If he sees a line that I don't.
Well, what does drawing aim shot do to the next turn? So I think that's a really big factor, the amount of damage and how cheap aim shot is to proc, right? He can aim shot, aim shot, hero power, and quick shot as well. Let's get explosive.
That's a big deal. Explosive trap is a huge deal here. So that's the damage. Not only is it 2 extra damage going face, but it also carves into the minion's health, right? So I think what xBlyzes is going to have to do is take his own 3-2 off the board. Ooh! That's not going to help. You know the Rhino damage is there. Yeah, this is smart. I like this from xBlyzes. Very, very nicely navigated in the end.
Oh, that doesn't help him.
Oh, it's such a well-played turn again.
Yeah.
Understanding exactly what's going on there. He knows what the plan is from Leta. He knows what the dynamic is. He knows for a fact the Rhino is there, how much attack it has, how much damage it's going to do to him in this position. So he just leaves the big minions up, mitigating what was also a very clean setup for Leta, right? He made the same play we were talking about, but he saw the missing ingredient, the explosive trap, which essentially dealt 4 damage, right? 2 to face and 2 to a minion that he could then trade into for more damage from the Rhino on the following turn. But xBlyzes is just too smart for that. He had it covered, taking his own minion off the board.
So now, does Leta actually have to go Rhino trade quick shot his Rhino?
I have no time for games.
I know that sounds very stupid.
Oh, I hate it.
I know, but if he's saying he's going to lose to the Slogger, is this just what he has to do? Or does he just... I hope he's not got it at this point in hero power.
I think... Okay.
Oh, I think he was tempted. I actually think
he was tempted. I really think he thought about it, yeah. Slogger does turn up, but it doesn't matter because Diligent Note Taker is going to be the damage anyway. Again, we're talking about players, cards that players know about. Leta knows that the Diligent Note Taker was there. So he knows he's dead, right? If there's any... Well, he doesn't know he's dead, but any source of damage would kill him in that position.
Yes.
Right? Because Shamans deal damage in 3s, and that means if the Lightning Bolt can get doubled up, it's going to deal the 6 he needs. So super clean series from xBlyzes. I think, again, you can see his recognition of these very high-level situations. One fantastic, overall game plan in a very short period of time with the Rogue against the Druid, and then just perfect micro decision-making in the end against Hunter. Couple of turns where small minions just did not hit the board while he was setting up, and then deliberately carving his own minions off the board to make sure there was no counter-lethal on the other side. That is a I mean, that's just a lesson in how to play that matchup, essentially. And he did it without any lifesteal, which I think most people would tell you is the crux of the matchup, right? You draw Canal Slogger, and that's how you win. And he did it with 0 lifesteal. He just raced it.
And I do think on the other side of that, Leta played a very good game on Hunter with a pretty rough hand, right? Because he also purposely wasn't really... As Hunter, you don't always get the choice to play around lifesteal, right? Because guess what? You need minions to deal some damage. But I think very early on with the hand he had, Leta very quickly said, right, this is how I win. This almost gets there in a lot of circumstances. I just can't give him a good lifesteal turn. And he didn't. He just got a little bit unfortunate with the draws, like I said. One aimed shot and an additional aim shot, and then we can talk about how the game could potentially go. But you are right. I think both players played very well, but Blyze just showed
such a good turn!
Blyze just showed a extremely clear understanding of every single turn of that game, which was very impressive. There was no little slip-ups. He didn't even overly take too much time to think about it. He just knows how the game plays out. He knows what his opponent wants to do, and he denied it, which a lot of the time is just as strong as you doing your own powerful things, right? Denying your opponent their good things is a very, very strong thing as well. So he is going to be joining Bunny Hopper, making it out of Group A, and Blyze continuing to look good, apart from the hiccup at the Masters Tour, but we'll blame the Brute for that one. He continues to just look like he's having a good time with Hearthstone and just putting in the hours as we know he is.